Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I'm your host, DylanLasagna, and this is episode number 221 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. In this episode, we're back to talk about another week that was and will be in the 2024 NFL season. This week being week 4, and the week that will be week number 5, coming up real soon. Before we get into all that, though, in case you hear any background noise in the audio, whether it's on the video version on YouTube, or for my audio listeners out there, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, in case you hear any odd background noise, well, that's my fan. Because it's hot as hell when I'm recording this. It's hot in this room. It's hot outside. Even though the time of day that I'm recording this, it's still hot. The summer weather during this time of the year, it is come late these past couple of years. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the cool summers, but every time when it comes to fall, late summer weather always decides to come right back and bite us in the butt. I don't know why. Every time in California, it always decides to do that, you know? But anyway, for all my California peeps out there, stay cool, stay hydrated, drink some good water that I'm going to do right now as well. And yeah, get yourself a cold drink. Drink that water, eat some very cold lasagna. I mean, no. Like, when I mean eat very cold lasagna, listen to this podcast, you know? It's a good relaxer, and it made me, all that good stuff. Anything to keep your mind off of this hot weather and just going on about your day. But anyway, before we get this episode rolling, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Make sure you follow Very Cold Lasagna on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna, so you can find all my extra filthy casual takes on there on socials. And then for all my audio only listeners out there, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, rate and review the show 1 to 5 stars and leave a nice little review, whether you like the show or you want to leave some feedback or just anything in general. And then for all my viewers on YouTube, make sure you smash the like button, smash the subscribe button if you're not already, which, by the way, you should. And then smash the notification bell so you'll be notified of each and every episode, as well as exclusive videos that go up on the YouTube channel that you won't get on audio. And then, as always, share this with your friends, share this with your neighbors, share this with your strangers, share this with your colleagues, whether it's at work or at school. Maybe you're doing a class project or something, and then you can have very cold lasagna in the background. Either way, share the good, the bad, the ugly about very cold lasagna, where we talk all things about wrestling and sports, mainly about the NFL, in the most filthy casual way possible. Speaking about wrestling, we are going to be talking about this upcoming pay-per-view coming up, WWE Bad Blood. It's coming back after 20 years of not being around. The 2024 edition of Bad Blood. Expect me to review that show, even though I've been very 2080 about WWE lately. Yes, I'm back on the bad side. WWE's gone on my bad side lately with their shows. But nonetheless, I still will be reviewing Bad Blood. So hopefully, after the pay-per-view, we will be doing a review along with, of course, my 49ers recap, and then, of course, the week that was and will be around the NFL in this next week. And then, of course, it's going to be a busy week with the Niners stuff, because we got back-to-backs with week 5, and then Thursday night game, and then we have Bad Blood, and then, of course, the week that was and will be. So it'll be a busy week here on Very Cold Lasagna to kick off October. So that's the coming week that will be. But for now, let's focus on this episode, because there were a couple things around the NFL in week 4. So week 4, I thought it was a little bit of a better week, and it was kind of like, as we ended the month of September, I mean, not necessarily the quarterway point of the season. I think that's probably going to be the week that will be to kick off October. But for now, we end the month of September, and it's kind of one of those prove it weeks for the unbeatens and for the teams looking to make a statement. And I wanted to see for some of these teams, like, are they the real deal? Are they legit? And for the other teams, like, can they do something to save their season for those of those teams that are struggling? We'll talk about which one of those teams that I fit that category in the week that will be, aka the recap portion of this episode. So let's do that right now. Starting with the Thursday night football game and to kick off week 4, only on Amazon Prime Video for how much money was it again? Oh yeah, $15.99 a month. I don't know. Prime Day is not Prime Day. Yeah, Prime Day deals are coming up again sometime soon. But anyway, this Thursday night football game that was only on Amazon Prime Video. Dak Prescott threw for 2 first half touchdowns. But he was quiet since then. But I mean, it's the Giants. They didn't really do all that much in this game. All their points came off of field goals, and the Dallas Cowboys managed to hold them off 20-15. Well, so much for the Giants looking hot in this going into this game, coming off that win against the Skid Marks. But then Daniel Jones didn't really produce all that much, even with Malik Nabers, who left the game late. They tried to stage a late comeback off that missed field goal, but unfortunately, nothing came out of it. But even with this win for the Dallas Cowboys, they still looked pretty sluggish on both sides of the ball. Like after those 2 touchdowns from Dak in the first half, there really wasn't a lot. Not really a whole lot of production in the second half. So and then the defense also let the Giants hang around, even though they were kicking field goals the whole game. They were giving them plenty of chances to go and score. But yeah, sure, they held their own. They limited them to those field goals, but still, letting them even stick around in that game is a big question mark, especially now that Micah Parsons has a high ankle sprain and Dexter Lawrence left the game with the multi-week injury. You know, not a good sign for these Dallas Cowboys trying to shake off the struggles going into October. So far for Dallas, not really a convincing win, and one that you really struggled with for a lot of this game. So going into the Sunday slate of games, starting with the early morning portion, the Atlanta Falcons, they were in a back and forth biter against the New Orleans Saints in a key NFC South matchup. Kirk Cousins led a late game rally, albeit with a helpful pass interference penalty to set them up in field goal range. But Young Hui Koo, he came in for the clutch. He has been a clutch kicker for Atlanta, and he once again did it again with a long 58-yard game-winning field goal to help Atlanta beat New Orleans 26-24. And I gotta tell you, man, Young Hui Koo has been a really good kicker for them. Like, he's been very, very reliable, and yeah, he's been really good for them. So yeah, that defense and the special teams, they've been very, very good for the Falcons, as Kirk Cousins, you know, he's still trying to make his way back from that Achilles injury. Yeah, it's been a month, but you know, I guess it's taken longer than expected. And Kirk Cousins is not necessarily, you know, the youngest stud out there, but both units they still notched the early scoring for the Birds. You know, it was the linebackers that got a pick 6. Special teams got a blocked punt that turned into a touchdown. So they greatly assisted the offense that's still trying to find their rhythm. And then Young Hui Koo with a couple of field goals, including that clutch one. So pretty good stuff. But for the New Orleans Saints, they haven't been getting some good stuff. With Derek Carr, again, looking kind of mid. I mean, a lot of people will give me flack for that, for Derek Carr going back to being mid. But it's the honest truth. So the Saints, after starting out 2-0, being aggressive and all that, I don't know what happened there. What happened to the Saints? Turning the corner on offense with that offensive coordinator. What happened there? Then we had the Cincinnati Bengals going up to Carolina to take on the Panthers and their old friend, Andy Dalton. But unfortunately for Andy Dalton, going to get a measure of revenge as Joe Burrow's 2 touchdowns to Jamar Chase and Zach Moss helped the Bengals get their first win of the year beating the Panthers 34-24. But I mean, I don't really have much to say about Carolina because they are what they are at this point. They're not expected to compete, and who knows if Carolina is gonna turn back to Bryce Young at some point. I mean, Andy Dalton gives them a chance to win a few games, but what's the point of them doing that if their plan is to go and get another quarterback? I don't know. But for the Bengals, more importantly, they still have some issues to fix out. Like the defense, especially, is a major concern. Because even against Andy Dalton, they gave up over 300 yards of offense and pretty much kept them in it for most of the game. Like, they could have blown this game, but, fortunately, on their side, they didn't. And then Joe Burrow also made a couple of errors of his own. So, for the Cincinnati Bengals to accomplish what they want, and that's to make it back to the playoffs, they have some things to fix. Then for the Chicago Bears, the rushing attack of DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson, they had a field day on a depleted Rams team that just couldn't find anything. As they beat the Rams 24-18. And, for the Rams, I mean, they're just trying to pull through. They just did all they could. They actually had a solid shot to upend the Rams in this game, but their inability to protect Matthew Stafford, in contrast to the previous week against the 49ers, they just couldn't do it this week against a more game Bears defensive line. And Matthew Stafford couldn't protect the football. So it practically put the Rams in an eventual corner against Chicago. Meanwhile, for the Bears, it seems like they found a formula to help out Caleb Williams. I mean, Caleb Williams did look a little bit more comfortable throwing the ball, especially when it came to the middle of the field. But it looks like that offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, is putting more emphasis on the ground game with Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift. So that should be the formula going forward. If you put more emphasis on the rushing attack, you can find more balance in the offense until Caleb gets more comfortable. And it's, you look at this game, for example, this should be like your starting point until Caleb Williams starts finding his rhythm in the passing game. So this is a start for the Bears. They beat the Rams 24-18. Meanwhile, for the Minnesota Vikings, they jumped out to a big 28-7 halftime lead, but the Packers and Jordan Love, who came back for this game, by the way, they managed to claw back in the fourth quarter in a big hurry. But unfortunately, the comeback fell just a little bit short. They couldn't recover the onside kick, and the Vikings held on 31, mind you, 31-29 in a furious contest in the NFC North. So, when you look at these Minnesota Vikings, they're 4-0. Sure, the fourth quarter was concerning for them, but they're making an early case of legitimacy. They were coming off wins against the 49ers and the Texans in emphatic fashion, and they still managed to get a team win over another playoff contender from last year in the Packers. And yeah, not exactly the best way for them to win it in the end, but still, a win is a win. They'll take it. And it's still early in the season, but September was a nice way to start things for Minnesota. And for right now, it seems like they are for real. It seems like they're for real. They got a nice offense. Sam Darnold's having a resurgent start so far, and that defense looking pretty nice. Meanwhile, for the Packers, their defense is not looking so nice. Their coverage not so great. They're getting blown by the Minnesota receivers. They also had some bad penalties. So yeah, they were putting Jordan Love in a pretty big corner. They were putting him in a big hole. So even though they got rid of their previous offensive coordinator, it doesn't matter. The new coordinator change won't matter if their players on the field, they can't execute the scheme that they want. So it's going to put even more pressure on Jordan Love, who is still trying to make do with coming back from his injury. It's going to make things harder for him. Then we had the Houston Texans taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars as CJ Stroud's late goal line touchdown to Dare Ogunbowale, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, his clutch touchdown with 22 seconds left in the game helped the Texans outlast the Jaguars 24-20. The Texans, a rough loss to the Minnesota Vikings last week. They bounced back here with a grinding key division win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, mainly thanks to the play of not just CJ Stroud, but his connection with Nico Collins. His big day helped them bounce back, going for over 100 yards and notched a touchdown, and making it clear that, they trade, once again, they traded for Stephon Diggs in the offseason, but Collins is still Stroud's go-to guy. And I don't know. Like, maybe eventually over time, they'll start to integrate Stephon Diggs even more. Maybe he'll be the focal point in one game. But this is still Nico Collins is Nico Collins is still the man for CJ Stroud. So I don't know. That's just me. Meanwhile, for the Jaguars, though, oh man, the all elite Jaguars. It's like, what is going on with them? Especially what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. Like, so far, he whiffed again. He's been whiffing so far, especially on big play completions. He was also stuffed on a fourth down play near the goal line. Like, why were you throwing? Why wouldn't you? No, they weren't throwing it on fourth down, but they were trying to quarterback sneak it. But it was a fourth and goal play that they really shouldn't have gone for. They should have just took the points. It was still early in the game, but still, I feel like Trevor Lawrence is so far not living up to that big fat contract. I mean, I feel like he's being a little too aggressive. His decision making is not there, but so far, something's not right with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe Doug Peterson is making things too complicated for him. Maybe make things a little bit more simple to get a win. They need to buy a win, seriously. Then we had the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anthony Richardson, he got beat up in this game. He injured his hip as Joe Flacco had to step in for him, and he successfully managed to do so. They jumped out to a 21-0. I think it was 17-0 lead. But the Steelers managed to rally back in this one, but the Colts managed to hold them off 27-24 in this game and hand the Steelers their first loss of the year. And mind you, a little fun fact here: Drew McIntyre, Liv Morgan was at this game, and every time that Liv Morgan is at an NFL game that she's doing PR and all that, whatever team she's repping, that team that she's repping managed to win a game so far. The Colts managed to win this one, 27-24. So for all those Packers fans out there, it's like, oh, I thought Liv was a Packers fan. Well, there you go. I need her to do a Niners game, man. I need her to do a Niners game. Even though, I'll talk about it in that recap. I need her to do a Niners game. Come on. Anyway, Justin Fields, so even though in defeat, in all seriousness, I think he played pretty good. I think he was far from perfect. Made some head scratching mistakes in the end, but he nearly rallied his team back from 17 down, using both his mobility and, more importantly, his arm. He's kind of sketchy with his arm in the first couple of games. They made Mike Tomlin barely made him throw, and Arthur Smith as well. But this game was very important for him to use his arm. Like, you weren't really going to do much with your legs being down that much, but I feel like this game he was more accurate with his receivers, and that was an important thing for him. So I think at this rate, even if Russell Wilson is healthy to go, I think Justin Fields has more than earned the starting role. It's going to take like a massively bad game for Justin Fields to lose that starting job to Russell Wilson. And meanwhile, for the Colts, they won this game, but I'm starting to worry a little bit about Anthony Richardson taking one too many big high risks. And I get it. Football is not ballerina. It's not Cirque du Soleil. It's not Disney on Ice and all that. But when you're taking all these repeated hits and you're having to leave the game, it's worrisome. It really is worrisome if you're the Colts. And I'm not saying, you should leave Anthony Richardson out for one game and have Joe Flacco start. But it's just like, you have to modify the game plan for Richardson, like not having to take all these quarterback run designs and have him go willy nilly out there. And it was the same, like it's kind of like that same play that he got injured on. It was a quarterback run, designed run that he got injured on. It's like you can't have your potential franchise guy taking all these unnecessary risks, and he keeps getting hurt on them. So the good thing is that he seems like he's going to be okay. He's going to be day to day, but Shane Steichen, be careful with him. It's like you got to be careful with them. Then we had the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets in this wet and messy game in the Gang Green side of MetLife, which saw Greg Zuerlein miss a potential game-winning field goal in the final seconds of this one, as the Broncos just barely hung on by the thick of their skin to win it 10-9. Yeah, it was a pretty bad game in pretty bad weather. But Denver managed to hold on thanks to their defense. Bo Nix, he didn't have quite a good first half, but he did all right in the second. But Denver's defense did pretty well, severely limiting Aaron Rodgers in the Jets offense, sacking him relentlessly. They also stopped a potential game-winning touchdown drive with a key sack to Aaron Rodgers to limit them to that potential game-winning field goal. So overall, the Denver defense doing pretty well for this team so far. So the offense is clearly still not perfect, but both sides so far have done enough to win these two games. So they're at 2-2. So not bad for this Denver Broncos squad. Meanwhile, for the Jets, though, coming off that win over the New England Patriots, and I know it's the Patriots from that Thursday night, how do you fail to show up in this game, especially on the offensive line? They failed Aaron Rodgers so bad in this one. It's like their worst showing since the first week against San Francisco. They allowed 5 sacks. They let Aaron Rodgers get pressured like a lot. Like I feel like nearly every single snap, Aaron Rodgers was like fearing for his life. Like they also got him hurt very late in the game. He was seen limping around. So you don't want that if you're the New York Jets. Like the Jets should know better in protecting their quarterback from injury. Like you literally don't have to look that far back in what happened when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Like no joke. So the Jets have to better protect their quarterback from injury. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Bucks took on the Philadelphia Eagles in a rematch from last year's NFC wildcard game. And it honestly wasn't really that much different. Because the Bucks laid down a 24-point first half onslaught on Philadelphia before using defense in the second half to pretty much seal the deal 33-16. And I'm concerned about this Eagles squad. Sure, they're going into a bye week the next week, but they are far too inconsistent, both physically and mentally, especially when you hear all these things going on in the locker room. But like, where was the defense from last week? Like, the one that saved both a sluggish offense and Nick Sirianni's butt with how they played in the clutch against New Orleans. Where was that against Tampa Bay? That was literally nowhere to be seen when the Eagles were getting boat raced right from the jump. They were literally getting, like, right from the start. Baker Mayfield and that offense were racing down the field. They scored a touchdown. And then offensively, they struggled. I think there was a stat that said, I mean, I'm not a stats or analytics guy, but there was literally a stat that showed on Fox that said they had no total yards. None. Like, for all the first quarter. All the first quarter. That is so bad. And then they woke up in the second half. And they're starting to rally a bit. But then they fell asleep on the wheel in the fourth quarter when Hurts kept getting sacked. He also lost a fumble. And that was pretty much the game right there. So, yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles really need to use these next 2 weeks to find a way to get it right, because if this keeps going after the bye week, then I don't know. This, even the division, could be a struggle for them. Then for the Bucks, nice bounce back performance. Baker Mayfield back to how he played against the Commanders and the Lions, and that defense too. That they were beat up last week, but feel like they were helped. I mean, they got some bodies back this week, and they had a much better game bullying Jalen Hurts. And I feel like the Bucks, whenever they need to have a get right game, or just need to have something to fill that adrenaline in their soul, it's the Philadelphia Eagles that needs to cure them. So they brushed off the track game pretty well for them, and now they go into a very key division matchup coming up real soon. Going to the late afternoon portion of games, the Washington Commanders, speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles rival, they commanded some respect out of the Arizona Cardinals with a stunning 40 bomb. Yes, a 40 bomb in the desert. They completely beat down those Redbirds in the desert, 42-14. Like, if you thought the upset over the Bengals was crazy enough, a 40 bomb. Jane Daniels led the Commanders to a 40 bomb over Kyler Murray and the Cards. Like, wow. And, credit where it's due with that Washington defense that has been, pretty sketch for the first 3 games. But they showed up to play to complement Jane Daniels' second straight great performance, because they really minimized Kyler Murray. They cooled them down again. They made life hell for them in that Arizona offense. So they limited just 14 points. I don't think they scored anywhere no, they scored a touchdown in each half, but nothing more. So the next step for the Commanders is to have that group on the defense play on a consistent level. And they do that. And Jane Daniels continues to play well with that offense. Ooh, man, Washington, they could be a team that nobody expected to do well later down the line. I mean, it's still early in the season, but they're playing really well these last 2 weeks. And speaking of, doing well, where maybe we said a little bit of praise too early, was the Arizona Cardinals. It seemed like they were going to be a red hot group, especially with that offense, with Murray playing well with Marvin Harrison Jr. and spreading the ball around. But I feel like these last 2 weeks, even getting both him and James Conner and Trey McBride, I feel like even those things have been pretty difficult. Maybe it goes back to my point from the preview with this game. Going back to that right tackle situation, them being beat up. So Murray, he didn't play bad per se, but he hasn't done a lot to get his team in a spot to win. And again, going back to the O-line, it has struggled too. And going into an important stretch, where they have to play the Niners and the Packers, both on the road. Yeah, this Cardinals team, they need to find a way to get an upset in one of these games. Otherwise, they could be staring at a big losing record whenever they come back home. Meanwhile, for my San Francisco 49ers, they needed a win to get their season back on track. And, well, they managed to do so against the New England Patriots, dropping a 20-point first half flurry before they had to prevent themselves from, once again, dropping the ball because they let the Patriots hang around too long. But they managed to seal the deal, 30-13. But I don't know why they let them hang around too long. But nonetheless, a win is a win. The Niners got it done, 30-13. And for the Patriots' perspective, like, my God, get Jacoby Brissett some help up front. I get it. Half of his starting offensive line is nowhere to be found. It's beat up, but get the man some help, please. He's getting hit relentlessly. He's getting pressured up front, on every single play, less than 5 seconds. It's the offensive line either needs to get healthy or you need to get him some help. Meanwhile, for my San Francisco 49ers, if you want to look at one negative from this game, it's the special teams. We need to get that fixed pronto. It's I don't know what it is what's the problem with it, but the fact that they keep allowing all these teams to have some big returns on punts, kickoffs, and even Isaac Rendo fumbling the opening kickoff on the second half. It's like, what the hell was that? I don't know, man. But the special teams unit, I hope in practice this week, they commit at least a good amount of time to fix these issues, because you can't go into this important stretch with the special teams being such a big problem. Like, seriously. Then we had the Kansas City Chiefs going to the powder blue side of Los Angeles to take on the Clippers, because once again, the Clippers doing Clippers things, even if they had a new head coach, because the Chargers, they had a 10-point lead, and once again, they do Chargers things, because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs overcame a slow start, and they slowly chipped away at that 10-point lead as they managed to overcome that slow start and escape with another win, 17-10. But it came at a major price, because they lost Rashee Rice. Now, at the time I'm recording this, we don't know the full extent of Rashee Rice's injury, but it happened when Patrick Mahomes threw an interception and he accidentally he accidentally tackled Rashee Rice into his knee. So, yeah, it's a pretty bad injury in the first quarter, but we don't know the full extent of that injury. The Chiefs don't know either, but Andy Reid is saying it's pretty bad, but it's not good, people. So the Chiefs are already down Hollywood Brown for the season. They're potentially going to lose Rashee Rice. We don't know it's for the year, for most of the year, several weeks. Either way, they're pretty much back to square one from last year, and I believe the year before, at the receiver spot. So, they need help at receiver. I believe they already got Juju Schuster, but we don't even know how that panned out. And all they have left is Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce. But we already know what Kelce is capable of. But Xavier Worthy, the receiver that they drafted this year, he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to prove to Mahomes that he's going to be the go-to man the rest of the way. Like, he's done that a few times, but he really needs to up his game up if the Chiefs want to keep their chances at a three-peat at an all-time high. Meanwhile, in Sin City, in Las Vegas, the skid marks doing skid marks things because they missed an extra point, and that proved costly for them as they had to go and score a touchdown to try and win the game against Las Vegas, but they failed as the depleted Raiders managed to hang on 20-16. And man, the Browns whiffed on multiple chances to win this one, but they made mistake after mistake. They didn't do banger after banger that allowed the Raiders to slowly but surely chip away to victory. I mean, Deshaun Watson didn't play bad, but he didn't do enough when his team needed him most in the clutch. Meanwhile, for the shorthand Raiders, I mean, they didn't. There wasn't really much to take away from this game, but they did what they did. They worked what they could work with. So they had multiple players out with injury, like Devontae Adams and Max Crosby. So they used this game as an opportunity to see what can work and what couldn't work. So I feel like they at least got something in the end. Then we had the Sunday Night Football game, week number 4, and that involved the Baltimore Ravens laying the smackdown on the undefeated Buffalo Bills, with thanks to Derrick Henry completely dominating on the ground, like he always does to the Buffalo Bills, along with Lamar Jackson going for 3 touchdowns, in a complete beatdown, 35-10. And the Ravens seemed like they finally found their stride on offense, with Henry and Jackson dominating this one. Meanwhile, for the Buffalo Bills, yeah, it's a disappointing performance, but at least there's a couple of positives to take away from this one, like with James Cook having another solid outing on the ground, and then Keon Coleman having a decent second half, maybe emerging as a reliable option for Josh Allen, but they're going to have to find a way to bounce back next week. Then we had the Monday Night Football doubleheader as the Tennessee Titans tried to not put everyone to sleep in this boring-ass game, but they tried to do so with the trickery play from Tajay Spears, and that blew it open for the Tennessee Titans as they managed to beat the Miami Dolphins 31-12 in a game that really didn't reflect that score at all. They just slowly, and I mean very slowly, chipped away that score. And, well, it's a game that beat Monday Night Raw in the ratings. Let's just face that. Let's just put it at that. So, and interesting enough in this game, Brian Callahan replaced Will Levis because of injury with backup Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph did something that Will Levis didn't do. Didn't do something that Will Levis has been doing, and that's turn the ball over. So Mason Rudolph, he was pretty much a safe quarterback, and now maybe Brian Callahan has something to think about over the next 2 weeks as to who will be his starting quarterback in the next game, as the Titans are on a bye week. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, they need to seriously start thinking about, quarterbacks, because they don't know when Tua Tagovailoa is going to be back, and this is like the third quarterback that they were on, and it was Tyler Huntley, and he miserably failed as the Titans were like ready for what they threw at him. So they got one more game before their own bye week against the Patriots on a short week, but they're probably going to start Huntley again. So I don't know. I feel like the Dolphins should really consider getting a quarterback, train for a reliable backup in between that time, because whatever they got now, it's not working. Meanwhile, in another track meet between the Lions and the Seahawks on a Monday night, in the other Monday night game, Jared Goff had a perfect game. He threw a lot. He was pretty much perfect for the night. The offense was very successful. But in the end, Curry Joseph got the game-sealing interception on Geno Smith, and that helped the Lions outlast the Seahawks in that track meet, 41-29, and give the Seahawks their first loss of the year. And yeah, the Detroit Lions offense and their defense, all around, it's starting to get pretty scary. That defense came in the clutch when it mattered most. Sure, they were getting inflicted with a lot of stupid penalties, mainly by Carlton Davis. But, when they're playing a clean game, and you saw it, you saw glimpses of that throughout the night. You saw that this Lions team, on both sides of the ball, they were pretty efficient, especially offensively. And when they have this very balanced team, they will kill. They're gonna kill teams. And I know it's early in the season, but this Lions team is coming for vengeance. And then, meanwhile, for Seattle, they may have lost, but it showed some promising signs. Not so much on the defense because they were so beat up with injuries at the moment. But Geno Smith, the offense, they played very well in the second half to keep themselves in a game where, well, they had to play well because, like I said, with those injuries on the defensive front. So, it's one loss for Seattle, but they could likely bounce back next week against the Giants. So we'll see. We'll see what they do going forward. So that was the week that was, week number 4 in the 2024 NFL season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on YouTube, or send me a message on social media what your standout game was for this week, your standout teams from this week, and what was the worst moment from this week. To keep the conversation going. My standout team from this week was, I'd say, the Minnesota Vikings. Again, for how they were against Green Bay, how they built up that 28-0 lead, and then how they just had to survive that comeback. Being the surprise team in the NFC and in the NFL in general, and like how are you gonna be against this playoff team from last year? Being this surprise team, how are you gonna outlast them, especially on this comeback? How are you gonna not get too comfortable? And well, they managed to survive, but there's some learning lessons going into your next game. So now let's take a look at the week that will be week number 5 in this 2024 NFL season. As well, some teams, it's the start of it. It's the start of an annual tradition, and that annual tradition is teams going on bye-bye. Teams are going on bye-bye for for 1 week, going on a little vacay, and then coming back to finish their season for however many weeks that are left in their campaign. Unfortunately, for these 4 teams, they get the sad treatment of a very early bye-bye. So, yeah, sucks to suck. I don't like the very early bye-bye weeks because it just increases the chances of injury later on in the season. So those unfortunate souls are the Detroit Lions, the LA Chargers, the Eagles, and the Tennessee Titans. So those 4 teams have the unfortunate honor of getting a very early bye week, but they get to rest up with whatever injuries they got, or maybe they just want an early vacation. So now looking into the slate of games that they get to watch and us filthy casual fans get to watch, starting with the Thursday Night Football game, only on Amazon Prime Video for however much money that Jeff Bezos wants to make you pay up for. The Tampa Bay Bucks at 3-1 take on the 2-2 Atlanta Falcons. An important week for Atlanta, not just for the trying to battle for the rights for the NFC South, but it's Bad Blood weekend. They get this NFC South game, and then they get a WWE pay-per-view right across the street at the State Farm Arena. Could Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, the hosts of Bad Blood, bring in Kirk Cousins, bring in B. John Robinson, Kyle Pitts, hell, bring in Raheem Morris, the head coach, or Arthur Blank, pal? Yeah, make those your VIP guests that you keep on teasing, huh? Yeah, bring in Shane Gang Kirk to State Farm Arena. Bring in some Bad Blood there, huh, pal? But I digress. Yeah, this is a key NFC South match for both teams. Atlanta has a big opportunity to go up 2-0 in the division. They already beat the New Orleans Saints, and they only played one. They only played one team in the division. That was New Orleans, but they have an opportunity to make it 2 straight, as they have to go up though against a red hot Bucks offense, that being Baker Mayfield, and it's a little bit of a tough defense too, in the Bucks. So yeah, it's gonna be a very important matchup for both of these teams. I believe this is the first NFC South team that the Bucks have to face, but it's important that they get this win as well. So should be a fun matchup on this Thursday night, and then going to the Sunday slate of games, starting with the early morning portion, and you get a very early game to kick it off, as the New York Jets at 2-2 take on the undefeated 4-0 Minnesota Vikings in London, mate. The first international London game of the year. We already had an international game in Brazil, but this is the first London game of the year, as the Vikings offense faces another tough test. Yeah, they passed the first of many that they had already, but this New York Jets defense, for as middle of the road as their offense is, this Jets defense is very, very good. But the Vikings, they faced plenty of very, very good defenses, and they seem like ready to face another in this overseas battle. So should be a nice one. Hopefully the Jets offensive line can keep Aaron Rodgers upright, please. Then we have the Carolina Panthers at 1-3 taking on the 2-2 Chicago Bears. Now, considering this is Carolina, can this be an opportunity for Caleb Williams to finally break out as a passer? Sure, I emphasized on, the Bears should be using the running game more, but this being a rebuilding team in Carolina, ironically, that the Bears stealing the number 1 overall pick from Carolina this past year because, that stupid trade that Carolina did. This is an opportunity for Caleb Williams to attack a weaker team to make it his breakout moment, especially as a passer. So maybe not. But either way, a good opportunity for the taking for Mr. Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick. So we have an important AFC North matchup between the Baltimore Ravens at 2-2 taking on the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals. The Ravens look to build on their dominating win over Buffalo on that Sunday night, but the Bengals might have some other ideas, looking to keep their own season alive. Sure, they won their first game of the year against Carolina, but it's Carolina, and they have to face a Ravens squad that came off that dominating win, a complete team performance. So the Bengals still have plenty of questions of their own. They got to answer, like especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, plenty of things to watch for in this game between two hated AFC North rivals. The Buffalo Bills at 3-1 take on the also 3-1 Houston Texans in what should be a very fun matchup between two hot offenses. But the Bills offense, they need to bounce back in this one, but they got a tall task ahead of them. And it's mainly their defense that has to slow down. CJ Stroud in the Texans Red Hot offense with all those weapons that I didn't even think about Stephon Diggs, because this is a Stephon Diggs revenge game, not a Stephon Diggs revenge tour, because that's reserved for, Liv. But anyway, this is a Stephon Diggs revenge game because he gets to face his old team in the early window. Why wasn't this a Sunday night game? I don't know, but either way, Stephon Diggs gets to face his old team. Yeah, the team that traded him away this past offseason. And he has an opportunity to get some revenge against his old buddy Josh Allen and rub it in his face, but may the best team win. The Indianapolis Colts at 2-2 take on the Jacksonville Jaguars at 0-4. We have a couple of key division matchups in the early window. I like it. So the Jaguars looking to finally buy an elusive win. They do have an opportunity to do so. The Colts, they have some interesting quarterback questions they got to answer with. Do they go with Anthony Richardson? Do they go with Joe Flacco? Some things to answer. But, all these Jaguars, if they don't somehow get a win against the Colts, boy, oh boy, they have some question marks, not just about Trevor Lawrence, but about their coaching staff led by Doug Peterson. Well, in a game that somebody has to win, the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots, 1-3. Someone has to win this game. The Dolphins, they got a backup quarterback, and it's gonna be Tyler Huntley most likely, maybe not. And then the Patriots, and their offensive line is not doing well against Jacoby Brissett. But somebody got to win this game, right? This AFC East Division battle. But somebody's got to win. The Cleveland Browns at 1-3 take on the 3-1 Washington Commanders. Jane Daniels is on a red hot streak right now, but he's got to face a tough Browns defense. This is probably Jane Daniels' toughest defense that he's got to face since I believe the Bucks. I believe the Bucks were his toughest defense, but that, in fairness, that was his first game in actual regular season action. So this is going to be an interesting test for him. Going against a still very good Browns defense, but offensively for the skid marks, Deshaun Watson has got to get something going on a more consistent basis in this one. Starting with at the afternoon portion of games, the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-2 take on the also 2-2 Denver Broncos. The Raiders still pretty depleted from last week, and now there's speculation abound that the Raiders are looking to trade Devontae Adams, and vice versa. Devontae Adams wants to trade away from the Raiders. So interesting how that is turning out just now, and now it's like picked back up after an offseason full of, are we going to trade Devontae Adams? But anyway, the depleted Raiders going to the Mile High to take on Denver, trying to carry over their surprising 2-game road trip where they upset the Bucs, upset the Jets, and now they're trying to get a home win and hopefully feed off of that momentum from that 2-game road trip. The Arizona Cardinals at 1-3 take on my San Francisco 49ers at 2-2. And Arizona has gone ice cold in desperate need to snap a 2-game skid, at home. Now they got to go on the road to take on my 49ers, who begin an important stretch of games all throughout the month of October. But these two division games against Arizona and then in Seattle, these are probably the two most important ones that they got to win if you're San Francisco. Then we have the Green Bay Packers at 2-2, taking on the 1-3 LA Rams. The 1-3 beat up LA Rams, who are trying to just find a way to buy a win before their bye week where they can hopefully get healthy. But they got to find a way to shock Jordan Love and the Packers, who need to bounce back from a disappointing defensive performance against the Minnesota Vikings. Trying to come back in that one, but failed. But either way, they have to have a better performance against a depleted Rams squad that just wants to get to the bye week. Then we have the 1-3 New York Giants taking on the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks looking to rebound from falling short against the Lions, Daniel Jones, and the Giants. Trying to look for an upset, but they just have to hope that Malik Nabers will be available for them. Then we have the Sunday Night Football game for this week. The Dallas Cowboys at 2-2 taking on the 3-1 Pittsburgh Steelers as Justin Fields looks to keep his starter status going and even defeat last week. Looks to keep playing well when they take on a depleted Dallas defense. But in the Cowboys, they're just looking to find ways to finally get their stride going. And, well, I don't know if it's gonna because going back to the defense, they got Micah Parsons out for multiple weeks, DeMarcus Lawrence out for a couple weeks. It's gonna be tough. Like Dak Prescott has got to step up to the plate, man. It's like get some consistency going. Then we have the Monday Night Football game for week number 5, and it's only one this week. And well, I don't know how fortunate or unfortunate it is for Monday Night Raw because starting this week, it's only 2 hours for the rest of the year. So, I mean, for wrestling fans, I don't know how grateful or ungrateful that is, but either way, not an issue for me because I'm watching Monday Night Football. As New Orleans Saints at 2-2 take on the 4-0 Kansas City Chiefs. Derek Carr and these mid Saints, yes, mid, right back to being mid. After their season started 2-0, but they're right back to being mid, and they're in big need to remove that mid tag because, well, their season is kind of on the line here, a little bit in some way or shape or form. Like they seriously need to get a backtrack on offense. Like what happened to their aggressive nature, their ruthless aggression on offense? What happened to Derek Carr throwing that shit with midfield range, taking some deep shots like he did in the first 2 weeks? Like what happened to that? Like why aren't we getting that now? Like what are we doing here? Meanwhile, for the Kansas City Chiefs, they're looking to go 5-0, but they're gonna have to reestablish some receiver chemistry now that Rashee Rice is out with injury. And then, of course, like I mentioned, in the week that was, no Hollywood Brown. So they're going to have to need someone to step up in this game with Rashee Rice out. That someone got to be Xavier Worthy and, of course, someone else. That's not Travis Kelce because we already know how Travis Kelce is. We got to need someone else alongside Xavier Worthy to step up. Who's going to be that Jacob Fatu to that Rashee Rice? Who's going to be that Tonga? No, not the Tongalo. That's a terrible example. Who's going to be Patrick Mahomes' other right-hand man? Kind of like the new bloodline, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, that is your look ahead to week number 5 in this 2024 campaign. The week that will be. Let me know your picks for all these games in the comments below. Let me know what you're looking forward to the most. Which game you're looking ahead. Who you're going with. What's your expectations for this coming week? Let's have a conversation about it in the comments below. And I noticed there's a lot of division games going on in this week. So, interesting way to kick off October, huh? But, yeah. I'm excited for another week of football, and should be a busy week with not just the NFL, but we got a WWE pay-per-view coming up. Some good stuff here on Very Cold Lasagna, and looking forward to it. Just as long as Bad Blood doesn't disappoint me, even though I hate it with plenty to be disappointed about, and I'm not looking forward to it. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, DylanLasagna, checking out of another week that was and will be in the 2024 NFL season. In the next episode, we'll be reviewing WWE Bad Blood, the 2024 edition of that pay-per-view. And then after that, we'll be back to covering the week that was and will be in the National Football League. But until then, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And I'll see you when I see you. But Until the next episode, peace out.